So I was in fourth grade when I fell in love for the first time. Now, that doesn't count my mom. I mean, I'm 63 and I'm still in love with my mom, and it doesn't count Nancy Koss in second grade because I never made Nancy Koss's top 10 list of boyfriends. My friend Maynard did. He got up to number 7, but since I didn't get in the top 10, that doesn't count. But in fourth grade, I fell in love. Mrs. McGowan was my teacher. She was young, she was beautiful, she was smart, she was kind. And I have to admit, like any kind of bumbling fourth grade boy that's in love with his teacher, I did kind of overdo it. Uh, there was a time that we begged to go to recess and we promised her we'd stay on the back blacktop, but we wouldn't track mud into the school and get the janitor mad at us again. But the basketball was rolling toward the mud puddle, and I stepped on that thin sheen of mud that's next to the puddle, and I just went shoosh, and water and mud went flying everywhere. I got up dripping, and I had to go down to the janitor's office and take my pants off behind the furnace, and he hung them up behind the furnace to dry, and I had to wear a sheet all afternoon. And there was a time that I don't know what I did, but I had to stay after school, which I was glad about. And then Mrs. McGowan found out that I was a bus kid. And if she kept me after school, I'd miss the bus. And then I'd have to call my mom. And then my mom would take 45 minutes for me to come and pick me up, which meant I would get an hour with Mrs. McGowan. And she didn't want that. So she made sure I got on the bus. Her husband, well, she was Mrs. McGowan. That was a problem for a fourth grade boy being in love with her. But Mr. McGowan was in the military and he was far, far away, and she didn't hear from him, sometimes 2 weeks at a time. And so I could handle that. But then at Christmas, Mr. McGowan came for a visit and we knew he was coming. So we did this, decorated the room for Mr. McGowan. He's our hero. And we had this big party. We all brought in treats. And then we went around the room and we were introducing ourselves. And when we got to me, I told him who I was and he said, "Oh, so you're that kid that's giving my wife all these problems." And Miss McGowan didn't contradict him, so I guess that was true. It was almost to the end of the year when Miss McGowan took us to Clona Park for the afternoon. It was a really hot, hot day. At the end, we were walking back and we were going past Mr. Ed's. Mr. Ed's in this little town was the only place to get a hamburger or a soft serve ice cream cone, and she bought each of us an ice cream cone. It was so good. On the last day of school, the last afternoon, we were supposed to write an essay, a letter to Mrs. McGowan, telling her about her fourth grade year. So I thought, I'm going to use irony because Mrs. McGowan had taught us that good writers sometimes use irony. So in my very inept fourth grade way, a boy who's in love with his teacher, I wrote, number 1, Mrs. McGowan, you're the meanest teacher in the whole school. Number 2, Mrs. McGowan, your games are silly and stupid. Nobody likes them. Number 3, Mrs. McGowan, you are cheap. You bought us a small, lousy cone. You should have bought us each an ice cream, a banana split float. And number 4, Mrs. McGowan, you're the worst teacher I ever had, and I couldn't wait for fourth grade to end. And I signed it, and I put it on her desk, and I walked out the door. And that summer, Mrs. McGowan moved away, joined her husband wherever he was, and I never saw her again. About a week later, our family was working outside in the yard, and we saw the mailman go by. So my brother Warren ran out to the end of the lane. He came in with a stack of mail, including the brown manila envelopes that let us know our report cards had come. And I was used to getting for E's for exceeds expectations and O's for outstanding. So I wasn't worried until I saw my mom's face. She opened up my report card and read it. And then she said, "Frank," that was my dad's name, "Frank, you need to read this." He read it. His face got real serious. And Mrs. McGowan had included my essay with my report card with a note that said, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Yoder, I think you need to read what your son wrote. Sincerely, Mrs. McGowan." It's been 53 years. It's a bit overdue. But I wish I could tell Mrs. McGowan. So Mrs. McGowan, if you're out there somewhere in this wide, wonderful world and you hear this, I didn't mean those words. I was trying to say that you were the smartest, the best, the most beautiful, the kindest. We love those funny games that you made us play, those learning games, because it helped us learn and made us laugh. You took us on places other teachers didn't take us. You were the best. You inspired me to be a teacher. 36 years in an elementary classroom. And I would still, that little fourth grade boy, it's inside of me. I'd like to say, Mrs. McGowan, I loved you. And I'm sorry I didn't write it in a way that you could understand. Thank you.